And welcome everybody to the Podcaster Nation. That's right. This is the podcast that's about podcasters. It's for podcasters. And you guessed it, it's done by podcasters. And so that's who we are. That's what we're doing. This is the podcast where the rising tide raises all ships. We got to keep on sailing. We got to keep moving forward. I want to thank all of you folks who are supporting this brand new project, all of the podcasters like this lovely woman I have on with me today, and all of the other folks who have already been with me. It's been one heck of a week. I think I've done 30 interviews this week so far. It's been a lot of fun. But all of you folks who have jumped up and said, yes, I want to share my message. Yes, I want to put that out there. Yes, I want to help your project. Folks, we couldn't do this without you. And I want to thank every one of you for jumping in. We do have a free private Facebook group for podcasters who want to get in there, network, share their stories, interview one another, so on and so forth. And that's called the Podcaster Nation on Facebook. So look for that on the groups. And gosh, that's about it. Let me introduce my absolutely fabulous guest that I have with me today. Love your hat. One more time. Rise and shine. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
Folks, please welcome to the program the host of the Words of Wellness with Shelly podcast, Shelly Jefferis. Shelly, thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Rory, so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here, and I think it's wonderful what you're doing. So thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that very much. Now, listen, Words of Wellness. You're in the wellness field. I mean, that's baked right into the title, and I love that for SEO purposes. By the way, nice move. Very, very nice.
Thank you.
But I read your bio. I've listened to some of your podcasts, so I have a pretty good idea who you are, and I got a chance to talk to you ahead of time. So, for the average person on the street that may not have found you just yet, all right, and there might be a couple that are listening. I don't know. Everybody probably knows who you are already. I think you're pretty famous, but give me all of your, give me your background. Tell me, who you are, what got you into this stuff in the first place, and then if you can, tell me what you're doing today and why.
Well, how much time do we actually have?
Good answer. I love it. All the time you want. I'm here.
Right?
I'm good to
We
go.
could we could talk for a really long time, I can tell. Oh, but what I will tell you, I will give a little, real, very, very brief how this all started for me in my personal life. I really, believe it or not, became involved and developed a love for fitness when I was a teenager in junior high. And that is really, truly how this all started for me. I started to get into running, working out, and I think shout out to all the teenagers and going through those years. It's not always an easy go of it. And I have to look back and go, I think that's for me partly what kept me like healthy mentally, physically. It's just like that release when we work out. And it's the same thing as adults, but I think it's such there's so much to be said for that when we're younger to kind of get us through those years. And I'm not saying it was a horrible time whatsoever, but it was my time. It was just my time to kind of think and kind of process things. So anyway, that was the beginning, and it just grew from there. I just kept at it. I started when I was old enough. I started working in gyms, teaching fitness. I got into personal training, and I knew it was what I wanted to do with my profession. So I ended up completing my degree in kinesiology, and from there went on to complete my master's degree, and I started teaching college. And I've been involved in the industry for over, gosh, 35, probably almost 40 years now, which I kind of hesitate to give those years out there. um, but I'm very grateful that it's been a part of my life, and like we were talking earlier, it's something that I have loved to do for all these years. It's just kind of ebbed and flowed, and it's changed a little bit through the years, just with the different stages of my life. I've taught college for about over 30 years. I retired last year, but I still pick up classes here and there. And I have always had an entrepreneurial spirit. I have had different businesses along the way, and they've all been related to health in some way, shape, or form. And I'm just really grateful for the experiences that I've had. When my babies were babies, I did a business. Many are familiar with stroller strides. Back in the day, we would meet outdoors with moms and their babies and their strollers and tubing, and we'd work out, and we just had this nice support group. And from there, I was in charge of the elementary school physical education program at my children's elementary school. So I got to be around them all the time. And then from there, I was introduced to a wellness company that I'm still with today. That's been a really big part of my life when it comes to quality nutrition, supplementation. And so that's kind of in a nutshell what I've done through the years. And then along the way, I've gotten into more speaking. I love to speak, I love to share and just educate and raise awareness in the area of wellness for many people. However, one of the big topics that I really am passionate about is sharing about just healthier, clean living and reducing toxic exposure. And that's a really big, it has become more of a topic now, which I'm very happy to see. It seems to be talked about, discussed more. Awareness is increasing, and it's a really, really big deal. So I'm really very passionate about speaking about that and sharing and just raising awareness around that topic to help others with their overall health so that they can, live their best life, feel their best, and live a quality of life. And that's really my ultimate goal.
And that's what you're working on now. That's kind of where you are now with your podcast. That's what you focus on.
Right. I focus on that with my podcast a little bit, but I also, my purpose with the podcast, which I know it is the same for many people, is to just get information out to the world. And for me, it's sharing experts in an area of wellness, whether it be the nutrition, physical side, or the financial side, mental. I mean, all of those areas make up this complete umbrella, I guess you could say, of wellness. And then I bring on also people who want to share their journeys, whatever that looks like. They've gone through, whether it be, a cancer diagnosis and they've come out healthy at the other end, whatever it might be. So it's really education and inspiration combined. And like I was telling you earlier, it's just been a wonderful experience. Just so many great people I've gotten to meet from doing the podcast, and I'm really, really loving it so much. And I also have a masterclass on the healthy, clean living. I speak on that, and then I also, as we talked a little bit earlier, I'm growing a community for moms again that's really centered around wellness and just supporting moms, giving them accountability in the area of their own personal wellness and self-care, just helping them to make it a priority, supporting them where they feel needed. And that's an area that I'm working on in the community that I'm growing at this moment.
In that community, that's your Moms Who Flourish mentorship, right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Now, people can find all this stuff that you're talking about. The best place for them to all find it, is it on your link tree through your Facebook link? That's where I found it. But is that where you want folks to go to check that out?
You can, yeah, the link tree is great. I find Instagram is a great place.
Hmm.
Facebook, I always tell people feel free to message me about any of the information or any questions you might have. Um, but yeah, those are all great spots. I am working on, I kind of have this vision of updating a website, so I haven't gotten that completed yet, but we're all out there on social media so much that I feel like it's a little bit of an easy access to find one another, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Unfortunately, yes, like we were talking about, we are all, in the social media world and have been on Facebook for decades, I think, at this point. But yeah,
Right,
I know
right.
what you mean. So now I understand your background. I understand why you're interested in the field and everything. What made you change from, like the classroom setting, for instance, or anything like that, into wanting to do podcasting, private group, one-on-one, that sort of thing? What made you become a private, coach and teacher?
It's a really good question. I've always had some form of coaching that I have done. I went from, many, many years ago, personal training, working with individuals one-on-one, and then going into the teaching aspect of things. And I just, was talking with someone yesterday about how everybody is just so unique and different in the way they respond, whether it be their exercise program, their nutrition program. So really helping people one-on-one, I think, is just so beneficial and can accelerate their growth and progress as well. I know that there is a benefit to being in a group setting. And I love that as well, because I feel like we can all learn and grow from one another. There's just another component of the one-on-one that I think is really, really valuable. And, as far as the teaching is concerned, there were some different factors that went on and went into me retiring when I did. And it just felt like the right timing. And, you know, kind of out of the scope of our episode right here, but just different things going on with education and things behind the scene. It just was time. And I'd been a part of working at the same college for, like I said, 30 plus years. I'm really grateful for the experiences that I've had and I still get to have, which is it's fun now to be able to teach a class here and there. And there's just a little bit more of a relaxed feeling, even though I take it, it's important to teach and do a great job, but there's just a different feel to it now, a little more kind of like relaxed feel to it is that, yeah, I take on this class or two for fun, and it's pretty neat. But in answer to your question, that's really kind of in a nutshell. It's just having that opportunity to work more with people one-on-one. And there's just been some various things in my life that have directed me to what I'm doing now. And I can go back to talking again about the education around clean living and just living healthier lives. I dealt with a couple things in my personal life. My mom was diagnosed with cancer at a really pretty young age, I'd say. And within a year, she was gone, age of 67.
I'm sorry
And
to hear that.
then,
Yeah,
yeah, and
sorry.
then, during that time, I was always into the health and wellness, of course, and I was into pretty healthy eating and, this and that, but not to the extreme that I started with that experience with my mom was when I really started to go, okay, she's pretty vibrant, seems to be healthy. What's going on here? And just, starting to look more into what changes I could make within my house and with my family. And then years later, my dad was ill with a whole other slew of illnesses. I mean, diabetes, um, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, high blood pressure. Um, and then I saw him lose his battle with all of those various illnesses. So that was another time for me, really challenging.
Mm.
But again, I feel like both those moments in my life, kind of just lit a fire under me to do more, to want to learn more and share more with others because I have a lot of different views on what has caused all of that. And it's not just my personal opinion and views. There's science out now that supports what we're doing, what we're eating, what we're being exposed to that's causing a lot of these different illnesses and diseases. And so I feel like it's part of my responsibility, if you will, to share that, to share that with others and to help make, even if it's a difference with one person, then I feel like I've done my job. And I can speak from education, I can speak from science, and I can also speak from experience. And so that's where I'm at today of just really getting these different messages out.
Wow. Are there any, and I understand the hesitancy to share all of those things that you were just talking about, because it's a public forum and, everybody gets beat down. But, on this show, everything is protected. All right. I'm just letting you know. So if there is anything you would like to share, maybe one tidbit, one sort of example of the things that that you have seen proved that people need to know about that maybe they don't know about, I would welcome you to share that now if you feel up to it. No pressure, but
I'm happy to share. I mean, there's a couple of different things. I know one is a quote from a doctor who she's put in over 30 years of research in this very area, and she has a quote that 95% of disease and illness can be traced back to our environment and toxins. And a lot of that is also the nutrition deficiency that we all experience. And I could go a lot of different directions on this, but if we look at through the years what we've been exposed to and how we have kind of approached health, diet, nutrition, we're not we're not getting healthier, we're getting sicker. And so you have to look at that and go, okay, why? Because if there's healthier, let's say, quote unquote, foods out there, healthier choices, people are becoming more educated. What is going on? And so that's really something that I'm really passionate about, just again, learning and gaining the information and sharing it with people. One big thing that a lot of people I think don't realize, and my big focus is more on just our complete health and wellness, not the weight loss component, although that's the goal for a lot of people, right? So a lot of individuals get focused so much on that part of it, but they're forgetting there's so many other aspects to it. I used to tell my students, you can step on that scale, but it's only telling you one thing. You want to have your body fat checked, you want to have your blood pressure checked, you want to have your cholesterol checked. We get so caught up, I mean, society, right? We get caught up on
Right.
that, what that scale says, right? How our clothes fit is a big deal. That's actually more of a determinant. But a lot of people don't realize that we're getting exposed to toxins through the air we breathe, through what we drink, our food, skincare, cleaning products. And those toxins get stored in our fat cells. And a lot of those toxins are just hanging out in our visceral body fat, which is around our organs. And when that visceral body fat increases, that's when it becomes dangerous. And um, there's just things we can do, but I think that we get so focused on another aspect of this is the cycling of dieting doesn't work. And there's research out now that is sharing those kind of protocols that actually do work. But what happens with the diet programs and culture that we've been caught up in is we're maybe reducing calories and we've been told to do that. But when you do that, now you're also reducing the low amount of nutrition we were already getting. Now you're reducing that even further. And a lot of what happens with many of these programs is it doesn't attack the body fat or that visceral body fat. It starts to attack our lean body mass and our muscles, which is the last thing we want to have happen.
Right.
So it's I don't want to get too much into the weeds, but I just like to again help people understand that component so they can start to make some changes and adjustments to help with that. And to me, some simple things we can start with is starting to reduce toxins in our home, maybe swapping out one or two items for healthier choices, because I feel like those little steps add up over time, right? It's just little baby steps, because if we try and do it all at once, it's too overwhelming and then we're just setting ourselves up for failure.
Sure.
And there
Yeah.
are moments for sure where I think it's just this uphill battle, because every day you're reading about something, you're hearing about something. This is in our foods, that's in our foods. They're tricking us. I hate to say it, but that's what happens too. Labels are not always going to be our friends, and sometimes we have to dig a little deeper into ingredients and what they are, and it's it can be a rabbit hole, I'll just say that. It really can be.
Yeah, I mean, this is a very I would consider this a hot topic today, to be honest. I mean, when you have people involved in mainstream politics who are on the big stage, talking about this, it's, this is a pretty big deal. It's front and center.
Well, I have to tell you, I am over the moon excited about that that's being actually presented right now. Like,
Yeah,
it's to see someone like you're saying, I just was like, yes, it's about time, right?
yeah,
Because this has been going on for a long time. I mean, I have a section in my master class, and I don't like to dive into the all the history of events, but just to give you an example, Monsanto, Roundup, they started using pesticides back in like 1901. Like, this
mm,
has been going on for a really, really long time. So it's no wonder that we're getting sicker. The more use of these pesticides and chemicals, if you just look at the graph of the incidence of disease and illness, and the worst of it is, I will tell you, Rory, for me personally, is that it's not just adults anymore. And this breaks my heart, makes me want to cry, but our children are now having diabetes. They are finding non-alcoholic liver disease in children. I mean, this should not be happening, period. End of story, you know?
Right.
So I get upset, I get passionate, but I also want to like end on a positive note because I feel like there's things we can do.
Sure, 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 sure. Until you point out the problem, you can't talk about the solution. So, absolutely nothing wrong with what you're doing right now. I promise you.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, so a lot of your focus then, I mean, because I've listened to a couple episodes, like I said, and I know that you focus a lot on what you're talking about right now. You also do focus on mental wellness and, emotional wellness and that sort of thing. But is it fair to say that the crux of what you're doing, kind of the majority, of what it is you work on is this with the food and diet and nutrition and that kind of thing?
Yes, I would say for sure. It's been part of my focus and my study for decades now.
Mm.
And like I say, the getting the involved in the focus of the chemicals and the toxins started really becoming more so of my focus after my mom was diagnosed. And I
Mm.
will also share, and I do share this as well, that my daughter is our oldest of our three children. She's 25. When I first became pregnant with her, I started looking more intently at food labels. And the thing that's interesting to me personally is I think, wow, here I am. I think I know better. I think I'm pretty healthy. I'm educated to some degree. I certainly don't know everything at all. It's an ongoing learning process. But back then, 25 years ago, I remember looking at labels and going, oh my gosh, like this food coloring's in this product, or this artificial ingredients is here, or this artificial sweetener. It was really eye-opening then. And then it's just kind of progressed from there.
Yeah, I mean now it's insane now, obviously. So it's funny because I was reading an article. I'm not I can't give proper credit to the person, but I can probably paraphrase it so that you can speak to it. But the idea was that we've become so conditioned to when we read the labels and you get to the stuff you have no idea what it is. You just go, okay, sugar, butter, wheat, dio, whatever the heck, and you literally go right past all of it and just go, oh, stuff. We never even stop and go, what is deoxyhydrate, phosphonitrate, you know, potassium, right?
It's
And
so
we
true.
don't stop and look it up. We're so numb to it that we just accept that there's 5 or 6 things we can't pronounce. We have no idea what they are, and they're just in all of our food.
100%.
How do you get
You're
around that? I mean, you teach this. What's one way? Because I'm sure there's a process. I mean, I know it isn't like here's your magic bullet, everything's done, right? But in your experience, what's one thing people can do to maybe stop being so numb to that?
Well, I think for me personally, what I recommend, and it's just I think a simple thing to do is just to know of a couple things you're looking for on, and let's use a food label for starters. What do I know I want to avoid? For me personally, I know I want to avoid artificial ingredients. I want to avoid artificial sweeteners. What does that look like? Sucralose, aspartame. So what I do personally, I'll, glance at a label and look for those items. And so first and foremost, that is what I will do. And so I want to just recommend that to the listeners. That's something fairly simple. If you start to get in the habit of, okay, what am I looking for? What do I want to avoid? And then just glance at that label. Because let's face it, I used to joke with my students that we're not going to go in the grocery store and read and dissect every label of everything we're putting in our cart. I mean, we'd be there for hours, right? So we have to come up with some kind of a system. And it might take a little time, but once you get into the routine of it, it's so well worth it. And one thing that I've been looking into lately too is this is going to sound crazy, but laundry soap. I see like preservatives in laundry soap, and I don't know. I haven't quite understood why it's there, and I'm still kind of digging into that to see why does that need to be there. There could be a reason, and maybe I don't know. So, again, it's an ongoing learning process for me as well. I just like to share what I have found to help others and help to reduce their learning time. And I'm always trying products, companies, And so that's what I like to share. And I know you mentioned like on my in my show notes for my podcast, I have a few links that I share there of products that I have tried. And it's a little bit of everything. It's cleaning products I've tried. I have found something I really like that I use now. Gosh, face cream, body lotion, shampoo. I mean, it's everywhere. I mean, it really is. And so you just take the little couple things here and there and try and swap them out because otherwise it'll just make you kind of crazy, to be honest.
I I love that. No, I understand completely. And you make a good point. You can't like just in a practical way, right off the bat, sit down and read every item of every label everywhere in the world and somehow get through the grocery store because we're all working 4 jobs right now trying to make it, and I get it. So
Well, and that's another thing that I've learned through the years too is people will say, gosh, it's expensive to eat organic or it's expensive to buy healthy food. I get it, right? Especially nowadays, like you're saying, it's ridiculous. However, you can like I have found that if I start to go, there's a couple, two or three places that I'll shop and I look for the specials. And there's certain products that I will buy only organic, and then others that I'm like, okay, it's okay if it's not. Years ago, I started doing the meat, dairy, organic. And then I don't know if you're familiar with, there's a form that I have followed for many years when it comes to purchasing fruits and vegetables, and it's the Dirty Dozen Clean 15. So you have a list of produce that they have a higher level of pesticide residue. So those are the products I will always get organic. And some of the other ones on the Clean 15 list, not so much. So if you think about products or fruit like a melon or a banana that has the covering, maybe I'm not going to get that organic. That's has a little bit more protection. But there's certain things on the list that have higher amounts of pesticides like strawberries, apples, grapes, um, potatoes. I mean, there's certain things on the list, and I have followed that for years. That's what's helped me. So I share that with people as well as kind of a guide. It's a really helpful guide, I believe, so that when you're, going through, what you want to grab that's organic and whatnot. And some people go full on organic, and that's great, but it's not always necessary. And it's not, I mean, let's be honest, it's not perfect, but it's better, right? It's better. The wind is gonna blow. You know, the pesticides are gonna probably go on some of the organic fields. I don't know how much that happens, but it's gotta happen. But it's again, it's not the perfect solution, but it's better. So that's what I recommend to others, and also always watching your produce. And I have to give a little shout out. Our youngest son, we just took to college, and he was playing summer ball this last summer. So he was away from home for a little bit. And I just have to say, he texts me one day and he says, "Hey mom, how do I wash? Should I wash these strawberries?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I would rinse them off." And this is all through texting. It says if you have and I sent a picture of what we use to clean our produce, and he goes, "Well, I don't think they have that." I said, "No, I don't think they do either, but if you wanted to go buy some, this is what we have at home." And I go, "Are they organic?" And he texts back, he says, "Yes." And I was like, yeah, okay. So it's paid off.
well, it's good to know they're
So,
listening at least, right? To some of the
yes,
things that mom's
yes.
telling them.
That's the thing I told someone I was talking to yesterday. We were doing actually a podcast recording, and we were talking about our children and just saying, hey, it might, it pays off. You just keep setting the example, and somewhere down the road, you'll be like, okay, ding ding, it worked. It did pay off. They were paying attention.
All right, that's beautiful. Now let me ask you a little bit of something about the podcast itself. I appreciate you sharing all that information, and I know you could talk about this forever. I can because you just are so vibrant about, oh, this is it. I can tell you this is passionate for you, and I love that.
Yes, thank you.
In terms of podcasting, okay, because hey, we do have a few podcasters listening to this program. Now, when you started your podcast, you've been doing it for about how long?
I actually launched last year, December. So December 23,
Okay.
2023.
Wow. Okay. So you said you had 40 something episodes, right?
Yes.
Wow. So you're publishing a lot. That's pretty good. That's
Yeah,
good.
it's been consistent, at least one a week consistently.
Right.
Yes.
Nice. Okay. And so when you started, all right, did you kind of just use what you had laying around? Did you use your phone? Did you go out and spend like 10 grand on equipment? How'd you go about getting up and running as a podcaster?
This is such a great question, Rory. Like I mentioned to you earlier, it was something that had been on my heart to do for 5 or 6 years. And I literally remember the moment when it came to me, the title, everything. And when I think about it now, I realize that I have so many different new connections of amazing people now that I didn't have back then. So I have to think there was a reason it took all this time that it actually finally happened. So, in answer to your question, I actually have done a couple recordings when I've been out on my walk or my run on my phone. But other than that, it's been literally jumping into Zoom, press record like we're doing today, and and then editing through Audacity and then uploading onto, is it okay that I share the companies that I use? Uploading up onto Buzzsprout. Now, I I will say I was blessed with finding a gal that really truly helped me in the beginning because I am one of those where I know I want to do this, but I just need a couple steps to how to get it started and how to get it going. And she was like a godsend. She says, you know, I can show you how to edit. I think you don't need me though moving forward. She goes, I'm sure you can do it. And at some point, if you want to use me, great. But I have headphones. I do have a mic, but to be honest with you, I haven't used one because the one that I bought was back, I bought it like 5 or 6 years ago and it doesn't work now. And so I'm looking to get a new microphone, but that's the beauty of this. And there's a couple of very, very, very popular podcasters who have shared, they've been podcasting for many years, but they will share the one gal, um, gosh, Jenna, she talks about she would just go in her closet and push record, like literally. And now she's like got one of the top podcasts in the world, right? And so I think that's an important point for listeners or and anyone that thinks they want to start a podcast. I'm always like, go for it. It you can have the fancy equipment, but you don't have to. And I feel like for me personally, I'm like, okay, I just want to get this started. Once I get it going, okay, now maybe let's look into, another microphone or just a different way of putting the podcast out there, like we were talking about YouTube. And so I am a firm proponent of saying, go for it. If it's something you think you want to do, go for it. I have met so many great people. I would have never met you. And just, it's just a really rich experience to talk to new people and meet new people and hear their stories and then be able to share them with the world. There's just nothing better.
I love that. I love that answer too. I've had several conversations with several folks, on this show and on others. One in particular, and it was in our first interview episode with a lady named Brandon, and she was telling the story about how someone wanted to charge her $25,000 for how to start a podcast, and we both
Oh,
just started laughing, at even the mention of it because, are you kidding me? I mean,
that's
I mean,
insane.
there are courses on how to get going. They're nothing like that, and there's
No,
nothing wrong with a course on how to get going with something, if it's, $50, 75, something like that. You're
right?
25,000. Like,
No.
I'm sorry, but you better be, doing the podcast for me. And I better have clothes with that, a wardrobe budget, you know,
100%. And the gal that I worked with, she was very, very reasonable. And she was so honest saying, I said, okay, well, how long would editing take? She goes, well, if you have an episode that's around 30 minutes, you can probably tack on another 30 minutes or a little bit more because you're going to listen to it again, right? And she was just so encouraging and supportive, which was exactly what I was needing. And I could ask her questions anytime. I still can, but it was just like an upfront, here's a flat fee, very, very reasonable, and it was exactly what I needed just to get the ball rolling. And
right.
so, and again, I know, obviously, as you can, I mean, not $25,000, but you can pay people to edit your podcast and put it out there for you. And maybe down the road, but right now, I don't, it's not something that I feel I need. I can handle it. I enjoy it. and it's working. So, but down the road, maybe if I'm doing like 6 recordings in one day, like you, maybe I'll change my mind.
Even then, believe me, you don't want to spend money on editing if you don't have to. But it's
Yeah,
no,
yeah, yeah.
I totally get it. That's the 25,000. It just makes you laugh, doesn't it? It's just so
Yeah, that's
crazy.
insane. That's
So
insane. I mean, you literally can use your phone. You literally need just a laptop, right? And then you find the programs that you want to use to upload. It's and I have to say, I don't know if I can put a shout out to Buzzsprout. I don't get
you
anything
sure can.
for it, but they've been amazing. Absolutely. Like if I have an issue or a question, I email them right away. I hear from them, and they have been above and beyond. I can't say enough great things about them, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I use Buzzsprout too for all my stuff, so there's no
Oh,
problem with that.
fantastic.
Yeah, and just for the record, and you don't have to, but you mentioned you're with a wellness company. You're allowed to say the name of that too if you want to. It's
Oh,
totally fine.
okay. Okay, that's great. I'm with Isogenics.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
yeah.
Love
Are
that.
you familiar?
I used to be a part of Isogenics. My son is still a huge part of Isogenics.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
That
See,
is so funny.
this was meant to happen right here. I love it.
Oh, wow.
Well,
Okay.
I have to say, and this is, I won't go too much into it because it's a whole other story, but I feel like I was really led to them and the nutrition. I was dealing with a little something at the time, kind of a lot. It was an ear issue I was having and vertigo, and just that's a whole other story. But um, I coming from again my background and thinking I feel pretty good, energetic, healthy. I felt different within 3 days, and then I
Wow.
then I'm like, okay, I think I'm onto something here, right? And so I have not missed a day for over 10 years of using the products, and it really is amazing. And going back to what we were talking about with the toxins, they have something which you're probably familiar with that helps with that. And so it's at that cellular level which we're needing, and not everyone understands that our bodies can no longer flush that stuff out. We need to help facilitate that process. And
Yeah.
um so yeah, so that's been a part of my daily routine for quite some time now, and I love that you've been involved and your son is. That's great.
Yeah. Great company, great products. And yeah, I can see why you're involved with them. With everything you've
Yeah.
said so far on the program, that matches up. That
Oh, well,
checks
thank
out.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Awesome.
good for you. That's great. All right. In terms of the podcast, I always ask one corny question, and that's what I call it, my corny question.
I love it.
But I get the most unique answers to this, so I'm going to keep asking this corny question. What do you love the most about doing your podcast? And what do you, and I know it's a strong word, but I don't want to say hate, but what do you dislike the most about it?
I love the most connecting with and meeting new people and hearing their stories and sharing their stories. What I dislike the most has really nothing to do with a podcast, but it has to do with our Wi-Fi, because I a couple of times have gone to upload, and sometimes it's the night before I'm going to have it, be published. And this happened one night where it kept getting to like 25%, and then it stopped. And then I started over. Then it got to 35% and it stopped. I'm not kidding, Rory. I tried probably 8 or 9 times. Finally, the whole thing uploaded. But to be honest with you, that has been my biggest frustration. Nothing else but that. And thankfully, it doesn't happen all of the time. But the first time it happened, I was like, what is going on? What am I gonna do?
That's great. Nobody has answered Wi-Fi yet. That's just perfect. I love that.
Oh,
And I know you use Buzzsprout because you mentioned that. And Buzzsprout uses a lot of bandwidth. They're great, but they do use a lot of bandwidth. And
yeah.
if you have a strong Wi-Fi or something, they're fast. It works
It's it
really well.
well,
But
and
if you
that's what I
don't,
was used to. I was used to it like quick. And then all
right?
of a sudden, this one evening, it wasn't happening. And I was like, I told my husband, I said, I don't know what's going on. And of course, I did email Buzzsprout, and yeah,
Yep.
my
And
Wi-Fi.
Buzzsprout's like, hey, there's nothing wrong on my end. I don't know what to tell
I
you.
know,
I know.
right?
I've gotten that email. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
podcasters everywhere who are hearing this right now are going, Yeah, yeah, me too. Yeah, I've been there. I get
Like, right? It's something
it.
that we all have to deal with, I guess. And it's just a part of it's part of the technology world, and you just have to go with it. And I guess I was thinking, okay, well, worst case, I publish it later in the day than I normally do, or worst case, I publish it the next. I guess, it's not going to be the end of the world, right?
Right.
But it worked out and got it done.
I do want to touch on this too. Thank you for a great answer to my corny question. Thank you so much
Of
for that.
course.
I do want to touch on this though. A lot of podcasters ask about monetizing, and a lot of people are interested in that kind of thing. And you have begun that. I mean, it looks like you've got some things going. I know you've got courses, you've got a community, and you actually have products that you work with. What was that process like to get into? And, is there any particular form of monetization that you kind of prefer or are more comfortable with?
Boy, that's a good question. And I honestly don't have the answer just yet because this is all new for me as far as monetizing my podcast. It's completely brand new. Prior to, let's see, I'm trying to think. A couple of my affiliate links were prior to my podcast. And again, what has happened is a couple of the companies that I have used, and I mean, for example, there's a cologne that I love and it's non-toxic. I have a link and I share that. Um, and just different products that I've used that I want to recommend. And it doesn't always have to be necessarily an affiliate link. When I do teach my master class, I do share some different products that I've discovered that I use, and it's not all to benefit me at all. It's just to say, here, this is what I have found. Try it. Maybe you'll like it too. Um, but I'm excited for this journey because again, it's just the early stages of the monetization. And so the more that I can share with others and give them some products that they can benefit from, the better. And again, like I say, it doesn't always have to be of benefit to me, but um it's it's fun. It's a fun and it's a smart idea, I think, for these companies to have these links, right? It gives them
Sure.
more exposure. And so yeah, so we'll see what happens with that. But that's definitely something I want to start working on. I know you and I were talking about that earlier, and I'm probably going to pick your brain more about the monetizing, but that's an exciting thing. It's exciting to do this and to share our messages and to know that it can turn into that for sure. Because for me, the initial motivation was let's just get this out there. Let's get this word out there. Let's get this information out to the world, and that's what I've been doing. So now it's like, okay, let's see where can I take this to another level. So that's kind
Right.
of where I'm at right now.
No, that's a great answer. I appreciate that answer too. And you brought up something in that answer that's really, really important that I hope that everybody understands. When you get into things like affiliate marketing and selling products or anything like that through your podcast, on your website, on your link tree, I do think that it's really important that you believe in the stuff you're selling. If you're putting something out there and you've never tried it or you really don't know anything about it, people are going to figure that out pretty quick. you know and as soon as somebody tries something and they just hate it and they're like, why would you recommend this? Now you may have just lost a listener. So
For sure.
there's a lot of that you have to take into account, and I love the way your approach to it.
Well, thank you for that. And I know you had mentioned, I think before we started recording, the link that's about wine. And funny story about that. When the country was shut down is when I discovered it. And I went, okay, a wine that has no chemicals and no pesticides, no added sugar. I'm like, okay, I'm in. Like, where do I sign? And so that's been great for anybody that just enjoys. And that's again another product that when you start to kind of understand how most of it is processed, you'd be like, oh gosh, maybe it would be good because maybe it would cause someone to never drink again. I don't know. There could be benefits to that, right? Could be benefits.
Right.
Um, but that was exciting and that was fun to discover, and it's uh it's pretty great. So there's products out there. It's just a matter of finding them, and I will say and encourage people to again look at the labels, look into the ingredients, because even sometimes there are companies, products out there that claim to be healthy, that claim to be like part of a wellness, um, you know, company or product, and and unfortunately it's not always the best, cleanest choice. So it just takes a little bit more investigating and researching. So um, but there's definitely many more options out there for sure than once I got involved with this, there weren't that many options, and now there's many, many more. So it's great to see that.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. All right. I do have one more question for you. I know I've kept you on here a really long time, and you're a great sport. I really appreciate you sticking it
Thank you.
out.
No,
Thank
it's
you
been
for that.
fun.
And because I think we talked for like 20 minutes before we even started about everything. So
Well, you're
I'm
the one that has a few more recordings to go. I'm good. So
I'm a machine. Don't worry about
I
that.
guess you
That's
are. I don't know how you're doing it. Really, truly.
But the last question I want to ask, and you've given a ton of advice on your field, on food, on everything else, and on podcasting. But for folks who are newer, who are getting into the business, they're kind of wondering what to expect, or like I said, they're new and they just haven't really gotten past episodes 10, 20, or anything like that yet. What's your best piece of advice to those folks to become successful as podcasters? And I don't mean like become rich, but become successful podcasters. What's your best piece of advice to those folks?
I would say to be consistent. Get a schedule that works for you. I was told that when I first started. So I said, okay, I know I can handle one episode a week. That I can do. And so stick with what you can do and be consistent with the timing of when you publish the episode. And I think that if you are doing it for the right reasons and it's in your area of, it doesn't even have to be expertise, but it can be, or an area that you're passionate about, then it will carry you. It will carry you through. And I think staying committed, I forget the number, and you probably know this, but I feel like I read this many times in the beginning that a lot of times people will start and they won't even get past, like, I feel like 8 was the magic number. Like once you get past that 8th episode, I think that was the magic number, but I could have it wrong. And so once I passed that, I'm like, okay, I'm good. You know?
Right.
Um, and then so I think that that would be the main piece of advice, is to find a schedule that you can stick with, and also to find not just the day that you upload and you publish the episode, but also a day that you're going to do your recordings, and then the time or day you're going to do your editing. And this can vary, as you know,
Mhm.
because I have found I've gotten a little more flexible with my schedule. And when I do recordings, I for a long time Thursday was my day, but now I have a little more flexibility. So I'm fine to do recordings on other days, but I think that that would be the biggest piece of advice, is just to find the schedule that works, be consistent, and stick with it. Stick with it. I would say give yourself a good solid 6 months. I mean, you know better than I, but I would say just, keep it going. And, sure, I'm sure there's gonna be people that start and maybe it wasn't for them, and that's okay. That's not terrible. Don't beat yourself up. But if you're starting and you feel like you're not really getting anywhere and you're new, give it time. Just give it time and be consistent, and things will happen.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Could not agree more with everything you just said. So
Good,
I'm just
good. And
nodding overhead.
you're the professional here. So that's great, that I'm giving the right answers.
All right, don't tell anybody else I'm a professional. Come on now. I'm trying to keep that a secret. All right, listen, I love that. I love that. People who are completely enthralled with you now by the end of this episode, how can they find you? What's the best way for them to reach out to you?
I would say the best way is Instagram, and I'm at Wellness with Shelly J, SHELLYJ. And to be honest with you, Wellness with Shelly was taken, so I had to add my last initial. Um, so there's that. And then also Facebook, which is where we connected. Facebook is a great place. Again, it's Shelly, and my maiden name is still there also, but last name Jeffries, which I'm sure you'll probably have in the show notes. But either of those are great places to message me, if you have questions, if you want any information about anything that we talked about, those are great places to reach out. Just, direct message me and I'll get right back to you.
Wonderful. Wonderful. And you are correct. I will put all of this in the show notes. When we're done with the show, I will double check with you before I let you go. I'll have all your links. I'll make sure they're all in there for everybody else to find you. So
Awesome.
that's
Awesome.
beautiful. The host of Words of Wellness, Shelly Jefferis. Shelly, thank you for being here today. You've been fantastic.
Thank you, Rory. This has been fantastic. I've enjoyed this so much. Thank you for what you are doing and putting all these podcasters and their messages out into the world. It's really wonderful. Thank you so much.
Appreciate that very much. All right, folks. This is the Podcaster Nation. You have heard another wonderful guest and listened to another fantastic episode. Folks, this is the Podcaster Nation. This is our world. All right. This is where we prosper, where we rise, and we do it together. The idea here is really, really simple. It's the podcast that's about podcasters. It is by podcasters. It's for podcasters. This is the place where the rising tide really and truly raises all ships. So keep sailing, and I'll talk to you soon.